It was the week of July 5th, 7 years ago. I was at a week-long summer camp at a place called Camp Freedom for the Boy Scouts. It was the summer I was going into middle school. Our campsite was a distant view away from the lake. Before this event, I have heard stories and creepy vibes about the lake around here. We ate dinner after we had set up camp. The tent, the Ozark, the fire pit, etc. During dinner in the dining hall, the camp director, Drew, made an announcement about incidents at the lake and not to go past the poles that are sticking out of the water. Which would make sense because of what can be at the bottom of the lake or who or what could be down there. That was when we decided to figure out our tent mates. I was sharing a tent with my good friend Blake. After the flag ceremony, we went back to camp and had an open evening to do stuff before dark, which was when we had to be back at camp. After we all got our stuff situated in the tents, the troop gathered around the fire pit. We all had conversation until the campsite leader, Brandon, came in to make sure that we all were situated and ready to go. After that, he had sat down and told our troop the story about Leroy. Brandon says Leroy was a scout from the 1940s who came to Camp Freedom with his troop one year. Leroy was getting ready to do his swimming badges at the lake. This was before poles and signs were up and strict. It was after lunch when he first started, and he didn't get to complete them at the end of that day, and he had to wait till tomorrow. He didn't really want to. He wanted to be done ahead of time. So then he decided to sneak out at night to try practicing at the lake so he can easily finish in the next morning. But the next morning, he was never heard from going forward. That was when one of our members asked, "What happened to Leroy?" Brandon replied it was never known, but some say he drowned or had an accident on the way in or out, but no one knows. We all sat there silently for a few seconds. Brandon gets up and leaves to go to bed at the staff lodge. It was a distance away from the parking entrance. He tells us to be careful and don't leave campsite after dark, especially without a buddy. That's when we all get to bed in our tents. I lay in my cot trying to fall asleep as I'm having a hard time. It was around 1 a.m. and I'm still awake. Then suddenly I hear foot noises and see a flash of dim light outside the tent. My heart begins pounding really fast as I hid in my sleeping bag, peeking out in fear. I also hear grunts and breathing noises as I wait for it to stop. After the figure or whatever that's outside the tent possibly goes away, that's when I wake up Blake. I tap his shoulder, then he groans, "What?" Then I tell him there's possibly something at our campsite. I'm too afraid to open the tent door. We both stay up in case of any more disturbances. Then more things begin to happen, spiders walking, leaves shaking, branches cracking. We both shake in fear. We agree that something is definitely going on. That's when we have the idea to tell our scoutmaster in the next morning and report it to the camp director, Drew. The next morning, during breakfast in the dining hall, Blake and I kept it quiet. After the morning ceremony, we tell our scoutmaster, and we walk to the lodge. Drew asks Blake and I both for as much detail as possible. We tell him the things that we heard. Drew tells us then it was common but very strange that what the things that we had experienced last night had been happening ever since Leroy went missing in the 1940s. After we leave the lodge, our scoutmaster, Blake, and I keep it to ourselves until further notice.